Hello, starting at Solitary. Welcome to our latest live event. This month's topic even is drugs and the craft, and it was suggested by Yellow Psych when we did our morals and ethics topic. I will point out that we do not advocate the use of drugs, especially illegal drugs, essentially anywhere in the world, and so you might want to proceed with some caution. Um, so, shall we proceed with introductions? So, I'm Stephen. I am now your regular Tuesday host. So you
And I'm
could join
Michelle,
me.
the regular Thursday host.
And I'm Tara, your regular Sunday host. And I apologize that it's quite noisy today, but I have no option for that right now.
Okay, so I will also point out that I am looking on the YouTube page. We have a live chat box right over there where you can leave any comments, and please do. We will respond, or I will respond. And you never know, you might end up being part of the conversation yourself. So, how do you want to proceed with this? Should we just jump right in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess we can go around and talk about our opinions on drug use in the craft, I guess, or if we incorporate drugs or whatever.
Well, shall we go around first and talk about personal experience and then go around afterwards and say about whether we would ever consider it or whether we would incorporate it or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, doke. So personally, I have literally no experience with drugs at all, spiritually or any other way. Um, Partly because both my parents had highly addictive personalities, and I kind of don't give myself a chance to get addicted to anything, in the worry that I would, and it would be a downward spiral. Um, I mean, for me, it's something that I've been brought up to be taught that it is essentially wrong, so I kind of have that belief. I mean, I don't judge other people for doing it. I mean, I know people who do like marijuana and stuff like that, and I'm not particularly bothered. Um, but I try not to be around when they're doing it. My husband said himself that if it was legalized, he might actually try it, but I've tried to talk him out of that. Um, but yeah, so I don't really have much to say on this topic, but that's kind of my. I mean, I have second-hand experience, but nothing first-hand.
Oh boy. Um, I unfortunately have quite a bit of experience with drugs. I come from a background of addicts. My father was an alcoholic, and um, my mom really wasn't, but she dabbled in just about everything back in the day. So I kind of grew up around it, and between peer pressure and the not so great home life as a kid, I started off pretty early, probably around 13 or 14, um, using like marijuana, LSD, and then it just escalated from there. Unfortunately, now at my age, I can probably count. It's easier to count what I haven't done versus what I have done. Um, so, but as of today, I've been clean for 5 years. I haven't done anything illegal. Of course, I have my normal drug addictions like caffeine, nicotine, that sort of thing. But yeah, I've done quite a bit of drugs, unfortunately. Tara.
Um, I would say I have, like, oh, okay. So I've only experienced one drug, and that's enough. That'd be pot. I live in Washington State, where it is 100% legal, um, recreationally and medically. Um, so anybody can do it now, as long as they're of age. um, I've not tried anything else ever, like what's been prescribed to me. I don't have an addictive personality. I'm kind of surprised. Um, so that's never been a concern for me. Um, I was not raised in a household where drug use was like pushed in my face. My mom doesn't do anything. She's a teacher, and then my dad, he's apparently smoked pot my entire life, but up until like my mid-teens, I was like, what is this? What is this funky smell? But it was pot, and then I gave him pot. But he's of the era of the hippies, so it's whatever. But yeah, I've only pretty much done pot, and I'm not a fan of it. I can't smoke it; it makes me sick. Any large amounts of it makes me sick. But I will use it for medical reasons because it helps me sleep. So that's pretty much all I use it for now. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, see, with me, it's the case of my mum has done various drugs. Um, my mum and dad were both alcoholics, so I'm just kind of like, I'm staying away from everything. I mean, I tried cigarettes once, and I just felt like it was just burning my throat, so I was just like, well, what's the point? Like,
Oh yeah, I've done plenty legal drugs as like drinking and smoking, but I don't do those.
I drink alcohol on a very rare occasion, like very, very rarely, and generally, like I think I've been drunk twice, in the last 4 years. So the first time was because it was a New Year's Eve party, and my mum was basically just plying me with alcohol the entire night. And I was fine until she gave me a rum and coke, and then I was just like, whoa. I was like, I need to stop drinking. And then I was still kind of like aware of everything, and then I walked outside, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I woke up the next morning after getting home, not realizing how I'd got home, and I mean, I lived just around the corner from where this party was, and my friend had sent me a message saying, "Why did you text me last night telling me you'd walked into a fence?" Walking into the fence, or texting him telling him I'd walked into the fence. So yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't like not having the memory of that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mind having like a drink or two drinks with friends to kind of like I find it to be quite good as kind of a social um
Lubricant.
yeah. I'd call it a social catalyst more because it sounds better. Just because the thing is with
Oh,
me,
that's just what the saying is.
especially like with kind of new people, I kind of get quite awkward, and it's even worse when my friend goes to me, "Oh, do you want to come to this gathering?" It turns out to be a massive party. So I'll have like a drink or two drinks to kind of ease me a little bit, so I'm a bit more kind of relaxed. Which I guess is what people do drugs for, I guess, but I don't know. I've never done them.
Normal for drinking. That's usually.
But I mean, I don't drink to the point where like I do stuff like my mum used to do, like stupid things, shaving my head or getting my eyebrows shaved or something stupid like that, or falling on my face. I just kind of have a couple of drinks just to kind of ease some of the anxiety of meeting new people, so then I can actually have a conversation with someone. And sometimes it leads to actually making friendships. So it can be quite interesting. But I've seen what alcohol can do to people. My dad died of alcoholism. My mum still is an alcoholic, and it kind of ruined our mother-son relationship. So I'm just kind of like, I'm staying away from most of that. You know, I'm kind of like, no.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of very anti anything addictive, really, apart from chocolate, and coffee.
Yeah. I don't
I was
think
gonna
I don't know if people, set out to, become addicted to things. It just kind of happens, depending on your personality and, depending on your, whatever you've been through in life or what have you. But I certainly never, sought out, you know, I want to be addicted to drugs or, whatever. I was dead set against it as a kid because of, seeing my family. And I just ended up getting, entwined into that whole lifestyle. And I used it mainly to, mask my problems, my feelings, my whatever. But I do have to say, I've had a couple what I would call rather spiritual experiences doing drugs. I mean, not drugs, but like, psychedelic type drugs like LSD, um, and even marijuana can be, a psychedelic drug, kind
Yes,
of.
it can.
These days I hate it because it makes me too paranoid and I don't like it. But, you know, I get when I started getting more into my spirituality and like really diving into it and getting serious about it, that's when I was like, you know, that's it. I'm done. I'm not, I don't even drink. So I didn't want to do anything anymore. But even over the years, I got physically addicted to drugs. That in situations that were kind of out of my control, and like I ended up addicted to opiates because of a surgery I had back in 2005. So
That's pretty
you
cool.
know, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
And you're in
But
Florida, which
yeah,
sounds
that too. Being here in Florida, it's like it's everywhere.
pretty basically.
But I do, out of all the times I've been on something or all the times I've been out of my mind, the times that stick out to me are those times where it was almost like a spiritual type experience. And I can count them on my hand. It's only been a few, but you know I think if some people incorporate certain drugs into their practice or the craft to expand their spiritual awareness or connect to their higher self or whatever because they don't think they can do it without them, or maybe they would just want to try something different like ayahuasca, for instance. That's
That's
something I would probably do if I had the chance, not gonna lie. um, but
but
yeah.
that's a known drug that's specifically for
Right.
spiritual enlightenment, and it's in a very specific type setting that you need to do it.
Right. It all depends on the environment and who's with you, what your state of mind is, what your intent is going into it. I think that's with anything, with any drug you decide to do, whether it's caffeine or pot or whatever. It's it all depends on your mindset. If you're just doing drugs to abuse drugs and just because you know just to be a jerk, I don't know. That's kind of stupid. But I don't I don't necessarily do drugs anymore, but if it came down to an experience that might help me expand spiritually, I would probably do it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine. I mean, from at least my experience, it's a lot easier to limit yourself when you have a specific reason. For I had an operation a few years ago, and I was put on some painkillers, which I was warned were quite addictive. I was given a very limited amount and said, don't take more than one a day. Um, because heavy painkillers to the point where they literally would not like make me high. Um, and that led to some interesting conversations with my mother. But what did happen was that it was a case of once everything was over and done with, I got rid of them because it was easy to do because it was like I don't need these anymore. They're not something that I would use again. Throw them away. Well, not literally throw them, get rid of them. Because I like I I'd been warned they're addictive. I knew that I could get addicted to them, and I was like, right, I'm gonna take them when I really need them. When I can cope with like paracetamol or anything like that, I'll cope with that. When it's too bad, I'll take one of these, and that's how I worked it for the entire time. And then eventually, it was like, right, pain's gone, it's over and done with. I'll just get rid of them because I knew that now the necessity had gone, and if I kept taking them, it'd be out of want. And I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to say, right, needs gone, go.
I'm
Yeah.
I have chronic pain, so I tend to have pretty hefty stack of painkillers, but I know that if I would take more than, say, 2 a day, and I don't even take it a day, uh, if I have to take it for more than like 3 days in a row, I know my tolerance, I have very high tolerance for everything, um, will kind of negate the point of taking it, and then I would have to do it more. So sometimes, even if I'm in a lot of pain, I just won't take it for a significant amount of time, just so
Yeah.
my tolerance doesn't go up. So I guess that's a good way of keeping it from being an addiction, but
Because eventually you just kind of get used to it and it doesn't really affect you anymore.
right, so
Yeah.
I make it a point, like, when I can live with the pain, I just don't take it.
And listening to both of you describe your different stories just proves that everyone's brain operates completely differently, because on the other hand, if I knew, like, say for instance, after my surgery, I was on, Oxycontin for 2 or 3 weeks. Well, once the pain was gone and I had leftovers, I said, "Ooh, let's party!" Like, I'm taking a whole shitload, and I'm gonna feel good, and then I just kept seeking it, and even though I knew that, well, hey idiot, if you keep taking these, your tolerance is gonna go up, and you're gonna get addicted. Well, that's what happened, and I just kept doing it anyway, even though I knew.
Your logical mind is fighting
Right.
your physical need.
My brain was, even though I knew this was wrong, and even though I knew this is gonna hurt me, and it's not healthy, I did it anyway. Like, the little man on my shoulder just kept saying, "Go ahead, do it, do it, do it." Whereas other people have, I don't know if it's willpower or, a nicer little dude on the shoulder telling them, "No, don't do that." Some people can control it and some people can't. And, I think that's why when it comes to, like, doing certain drugs to enhance your practice, it's not all, uniform for everybody. Certain people really got to be careful. And, certain people are okay with, I can do it just that one time and never touch it again. And other people may have a problem with that. And, that's, unfortunately, that sucks for some people. It's just, even though, like, now I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I still know in the back of my mind, if I picked something up that I know I used to be addicted to, I would probably have an issue.
Mm.
Why is beyond me, but
I will point out as well, it's not as black and white as can and can't. It is a sliding scale.
right.
Like a lot of things that we put in binaries, there is a kind of scale to it, and some people have kind of a. I guess talking about tolerance again, it's like some people can not be addicted to something kind of low key, kind of like like marijuana or something like that. But then if they went onto something a bit, quite a bit worse, they'd be gone.
Right.
And it's like there's a massive difference between, like, I don't know, like marijuana and cocaine, for example. I mean, I don't know the specifics. I've never taken them. I don't have personal experience with heavy drugs like cocaine and stuff like that. I don't even have secondary experience. But I mean, I have seen people go through the process of getting addicted to something. My mum has been addicted to all sorts. I mean, it's alcohol, gambling, cigarettes, even marijuana, and what she calls whiz, which I believe is amphetamines.
Yeah.
And I've seen her addicted to all of them, and I've seen her go through the stages of getting addicted to them as well, whereby she'll hide it or she'll pretend that's not a problem and stuff like that, and it's like, you're not going to be able to do anything about it until you actually admit to not only other people but to yourself that that's happening to you.
Right.
And the thing is, she's been offered help with her alcoholism as well, and she's refused it. And it's like, well, no one can help her until she helps herself, essentially. And this is why addiction scares me, and why it's basically kind of put a fear into me whereby I will not even try anything. Like, I've had friends who've said, "Oh yeah, I really want to get you drunk," and I've said, "Oh well, only if there's someone there to stay sober to make sure I don't do anything too stupid." I've had people say I want to get you high, and I'm like, that's not going to happen. Like, just never. I've been drunk before. I know that it doesn't end well. It doesn't end badly. Like, I mean, the last time I got drunk, all that happened was I just couldn't stop myself from talking utter bullshit. Um,
That's pretty
but
normal for most
when
people.
it,
Yeah.
I mean, but people say, oh yeah, I'd love to get, I'd love to get you high, or I'd love to get, stoned or whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna, there's no power in the universe that will convince me to do that.
Right.
And
Um,
each drug has a different effect on a person's body. Like pot is not so much physically addictive as it can be mentally addictive because when you
Yeah.
yeah,
smoke it continuously, it becomes a habit. And any habit, um, your brain doesn't click, and it's like, okay, if I don't do this, then in some way you're going to have a withdrawal. Like your body may not really give a shit, but your mind will. And the mind addiction, I think it's even worse than the physical addiction, because the physical addiction can be overcome in a relatively short time. A mental addiction can last years, if not a lifetime.
mm,
Yeah, well, the mental addiction goes hand in hand with physical. Like, trying to just quit something like heroin or Oxycontin or cocaine is,
Very similar
um,
to physical addictions.
you literally just want to die. Trust me. I've spent weeks in bed, very, very sick from this stuff, and then after those few weeks go by, you're still really not fully back to your normal self physically, but yes, the mental thing continues and continues, and um, that's why people really. I mean, even if you only use certain things once in a while for spiritual purposes or whatever, you gotta really be careful with where you take it and how long you do it. Like say you like even if you just smoke like mugwort or people even smoke chamomile for meditation. You know Even if you wanted to only do that once or twice to kind of have some great meditation experience, you certain people will chase that and certain people won't. Certain people will leave it to okay, that was cool, and then others will chase it and chase it and chase it. Ugh, it's a mess. Don't do drugs, kids. Do not.
yeah.
Ever.
It's like
Don't touch them.
over here when people talk about helping people with alcoholism, they say there's kind of two main stages of the alcohol addiction, and the first is the mental dependency, which is whereby they're drinking because they feel they need to, they think they need it, um, and the second stage where it becomes a bigger problem is the physical dependency, whereby if they stop drinking, their hands start shaking and they can't function properly physically as well as mentally. Um, so it starts off mental and then goes to physical, and when it gets to that point of physical, then it's a real problem. Like
Yeah.
it's a bit of an awkward one because you know that a mental addiction is a problem anyway, because that's literally affecting your mind. It's you know once you've stopped, you still have the thoughts. Go and get a drink. Go and get whatever. Go and
Right.
So that's already a problem. When you've got the physical addiction as well, you don't want to stop because you know that it'll make you ill to stop, even though it's probably making you worse to keep going.
Right.
um,
Exactly.
in the long term, anyway. And it's
Yeah.
like it's breaking that down. And I mean, as I said, I've never actually gotten addicted to anything because I won't give myself the chance to. But I've seen people go through it. I've seen a guy who was on heroin, I believe, got moved on to something. They put him on this thing called methadone, I believe it's called.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I mean, he lived with us for a couple of weeks, and it's just, I, my mum was like, don't go near him on your own. And I'm just like, he seemed like a really nice person, but like when he had a problem, he had a problem. Um, I mean, there was one point as well when I started living on my own where I got moved into a place just for a few days that was full of recovering alcoholics. And one of the staff actually said to me, just stay in your room, don't wander around, don't walk down hallways, don't speak to anyone, just keep to yourself. because these people can be, dangerous. And I'm like, I'm 16. They put me in this place after leaving an alcoholic parent to stay for a few days while I find somewhere else, and it's full of dangerous alcoholics. Like, it turned out fine because I was at college most of the day, and then I just stayed in my room in the evening. But it was terrifying.
Yeah, I bet.
Being on this end, when you see people do things, it does scare you, and that's why I won't go into it. But it's like you can see the appeal, like in a sense, like you hear, descriptions of how it makes you feel and how, and the fact that you feel or energetic or whatever, either it picks you up or it like calms down. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but have you seen the people who are on those things? Have you seen what it does to them when they can't control it? Do you really know that? I mean, my mum had no faith in me. She thought I'd go off to uni and be on all sorts of drugs, and I was determined to prove. I was determined to prove her wrong. Essentially, that's basically been my life's work, is to make sure that I don't do the same thing she does. And so far, so good.
What about have you ever thought about, doing something to enhance your craft or your practice or your meditation practice? Have you ever thought into using any enhancers or aids to help you meditate or whatever in your practice? I mean, I have, but like because of where I'm at now, I'm kind of like, I don't really want to do anything.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean, I've done little things like, like I said, like herbs, mugwort, chamomile, a little bit of marijuana, not much, but it hinders me because I'm like, is this a good excuse? Like, can I use this for my meditation practice? Is this okay? I don't know. So I've kind of been at war with myself when it comes to that, but some people use that as like, it's okay as long as you're using it for, spirituality or for your, practice.
But an addict, so you have to kind of like, see, am I doing this because of my addiction capabilities, or
Right.
am I actually really doing it?
Yeah, the problem is as well, and they will use any excuse they can. So sometimes you've got to kind of wonder, like people who are saying, "Oh yeah, it's okay as long as you're using it for this reason." Is it like, are they possibly slightly addicted? Like, and it is easy to find an excuse to do that. And I will say that I've contemplated doing stuff to kind of like help with my practice, but I'm not in the business of risks. I don't like risking things. I mean,
You're atypical of a teenager. Well, I don't think you're a teenager. Are you?
I know it was I'm
No, he froze.
yeah, I find it great to have, like, I wouldn't mind the idea of having something to help me chill out, because I mean, for quite a while I was under a lot of stress when I was kind of between 16 and 18. And at that point I would have probably, if someone said, here, take this, it'll chill you out like that and it's fine, it won't affect you, like, I'd have gone with it. Like,
Like that, stuff for sleep.
but at the same time, I was constantly panicked. I mean, my doctor couldn't prescribe anything because the only thing he could prescribe was beta blockers, which I can't take because I used to have asthma, and they could cause a problem because of that. So I had no help with the amount of stress I was going through, and the fact that, I mean, I was kind of, they couldn't prescribe me with antidepressants either, even though I was like thoroughly depressed for a while because I was under 18 and I needed the specialist to prescribe them, and I couldn't get to a specialist. So it led to like just me kind of dealing with things off my own back. And now I know I can do that, and now I know I can, like, I have methods of chilling myself out, calming myself down, taking a break, reducing my stress levels, calming my own mind. I mean, I was in meditation even long before I got into paganism, just because it was something to calm me down when I was like high anxiety, high stress. I mean, I was diagnosed with stress and anxiety at 15. After 2 heart attack scares, because I was just constantly like stress pains in my arms and stuff like that. led to people thinking I was having like shooting pains down my arms because of kind of the heart rate and everything. People
Yeah.
panicked that I was having a heart attack, and literally one night I had like an ambulance out with an ECG, um, checking my pulse and my heart rate and my blood pressure and all that to make sure that I wasn't having a heart attack. I was in hospital that night and they couldn't find out what was wrong with me. And then I was diagnosed with anxiety a couple of weeks later. So,
Yeah, I used to have that major anxiety, but I got prescribed stuff to take for it, and thank goodness I haven't had issues in a few years. But so, would we consider drugs, like what certain people consider drugs and what other people consider drugs are two different things. Like, would we consider it drugs to drink certain herbal teas to gain a certain feeling for whatever we're doing in our practice? Would that be considered a drug? I mean, because if you know what I mean, like, I wouldn't consider it a drug. I don't consider using any herbs, any plants as drugs. Even marijuana, I really don't look at that as a drug. I just don't.
I'm
Like, certain people categorize drugs differently. Like, oh, you drink caffeine every day, that's a drug. Like, where do we draw the line, you know?
Well, for me, with labeling what's a drug, if anything alters your natural state, it's a drug, in my opinion. However, what's acceptable as a drug differs. Like caffeine, cigarettes, alcohol, pot are generally in a lump on its own off to the side, like lesser drugs compared to, say, like heroin and coke and other stuff like that.
well, I
But
mean,
they're all drugs.
medically speaking, you're right. They are all drugs. Caffeine is a drug. Everything from caffeine to we're on the other end of the spectrum, like heroin,
Addiction's
cocaine.
horrible. Try to
I
have
mean,
a
I've
caffeine.
I've been addicted to energy drinks. I mean, they've got
That's
caffeine and
wicked.
taurine and whatever else in them.
Those are so unhealthy.
Yeah, I know, but I was really badly addicted to those for quite a while. I was literally like, to keep me awake, I was dependent on them. That's the only thing I've been addicted to in my entire life. Although my entire life is probably quite short because I'm only 19. But that's the only thing I've been addicted to, and I didn't realize I was addicted to them until after I had finished, like after I'd kind of been drinking them that often, because I lived in a place where it took me 2 hours to get into college every morning, and an hour and a half to get every morning and an hour and a half to get back every evening. And so I was waking up at 6 in the morning, having an energy drink, getting on the bus, having a slightly less effective energy drink on the way to college, then having an energy drink at lunchtime to keep me through college in the afternoon, having a lesser one on the way back, and then having one in the evening to keep me awake till the night so I could have a decent night's sleep.
This is where most people start drinking coffee is in college, so this is not abnormal behavior for college
Yeah,
students.
this was when I was 16.
Doesn't matter the age. College.
And it was only after the fact when I kind of stopped drinking them. I was like, because I kept on them for a while, but not quite as heavily, because I was like, I don't really need them anymore. But I was still drinking them. I'm like, why am I still drinking them? I don't need them. And then I realized caffeine, taurine, whatever else is in them, it's all addictive. And I kind of all of a sudden had this realization, and then once I had that realization that I was addicted to these things, I was like, right, stop. And I just completely stopped drinking them for months, and I mean like quite a few months. So and then I had one about 6 months later, and it literally kept me awake until like a couple of it kept me awake like for about 4 hours after I'd finished drinking it. And that was like a really cheap, like crappy one. And now I very rarely drink them anymore. And the last time I had one, I ended up having two in the same day, and I literally it was a caffeine overdose. Like my heart was pumping, like really badly, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stop drinking these now.
Do we have any questions? floating around?
So far, no. Um, I keep checking, but there's kind of nothing on the YouTube page. Anything else anyone wants to say? So,
Let's see. I don't know. I think because, like I said, I've been contemplating what I consider to be a drug, or what I might do to like enhance my practice or enhance my meditation practice. And like I said, if I had the opportunity, I would definitely do an ayahuasca retreat if I had the money. They're very expensive. um, but right now the only thing I use is, like I said, like I'll drink mugwort tea or smoke it once in a while. Chamomile. What else? That's pretty much it. Sometimes, other mixtures, but mostly like, and I hate tea, but I'll drink it just to kind of chill me out and get me into help me get into a zone, because I don't know if it's just my mentality of I need something to help me get further. But I notice when I've hit a plateau or I've hit like a roadblock in my meditation practice where I'm trying to get to a certain point or a certain level, I feel the need to use something or do something. And I try myself, and then when that doesn't work, I'll like I said, turn to like herbal teas or you know herbs in general. So I don't know if you consider that drugs or not. I really don't, especially since a lot of us use herbs, on the regular in our practices. So why not use them, you know, to aid me that way, you know, consuming them. So that's all the drugs I do now, besides
in
caffeine.
terms in terms of what I
Yes.
consider a drug, I mean, like we said, kind of medically speaking, everything from caffeine to right on the other end of the spectrum is a drug. However, to me, when I use the term drugs, I generally am talking about illegal drugs. So, I mean, over in the UK here, that is anything from cannabis onwards. That's, um, you know, cannabis, amphetamines, all the way up to heroin and cocaine and whatever else. Um, and that to me is drugs. Caffeine is caffeine, and alcohol is alcohol, and cigarettes are cigarettes.
Yeah,
Drugs is a spectrum term for anything that is dangerous, which in reality it depends, because really it's, I mean, abusing anything is dangerous. Food,
right.
if you overeat, it's dangerous to your health. The same with alcohol, same with cigarettes, same with caffeine. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it doesn't harm you just as much. It depends on how you use it.
I used to have a friend that had the saying. I don't remember how it exactly went, but he's like, you know, what if when we take drugs, like natural drugs that come from the earth type of thing, like marijuana, um, or like mushrooms or something like that, what if that's showing us how the world really is, Like, what if that's really opening us up to how the world really looks and how the world really, um, is perceived? And I used to think about that, like, it's pretty wild, Like, what if
Hmm.
right now we're just in a matrix, but then, or some kind of like program, and then, we take drugs or smoke some weed or do some mushrooms, and wow, this is reality.
It'll make
I always thought that was a funny yet interesting concept. So, you know
Mm.
we come up with all sorts of weird concepts when we're on drugs. But I mean, I've had some really, what I thought were really spiritual experiences on acid before, or mushrooms before, and I swear, at one point I had sworn I had met God. Like, I really thought I did. Now
There's
I'm not sure about that, but I mean, it was an emotional experience, and that didn't
there is a
happen all the
history to
time.
that.
Yeah.
There is a history to that. I remember hearing, I can't particularly validate this, but it seems like it's probably truth. that kind of before, kind of we would call them magic mushrooms, were considered a drug, and they just kind of grew wild. There would be monks who'd go down from the monasteries and consume them to have, like you said, a spiritual experience, to meet God, to receive, in their opinion, what was a message from God.
Right.
And I mean, it was, it was an ordinary thing for them to do. They didn't realize at the time that these mushrooms were, were hallucinogenic drugs.
Yeah.
But it is, it's not something that you've, you've just all of a sudden decided, oh, this is going to cause visual. It's something that has a history to it. People have done this for. I can see where you're coming from. I assume that, um, as well, and we all have these different experiences. The fact that I'm kind of dead against it, well, not to the point where I would judge others for doing it, but I'm just like, personally, I wouldn't touch anything. Whereas kind of you, Michelle, have done quite a lot, and Tara, you're kind of in the middle with your marijuana. But it's interesting to me that it's just interesting to me that we have all these different experiences, and yet we've all kind of found a very similar kind of path, in a sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Very
we've
interesting.
all got completely different backgrounds, of varying different things. And I mean, I'm kind of straying a bit here from the actual topic, but it's just interesting to meet people who are just so incredibly different and yet still have something in common with them.
Yeah. It's
It's
pretty cool.
yeah,
We're all from very different areas too.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's things like this that I find really fascinating. I love meeting people from completely different backgrounds and areas, geographically and, mentally, socially, whatever. Um, and finding common ground with them and just being like, this just proves we are all connected in some way.
Right.
Like, everyone has a connection to everyone else. Just maybe not the same connection. Maybe, I might have my path in common with you. I don't have that in common with my husband. We have kind of gaming, TV shows, comedy in common. He's not, spiritually inclined, whatever. I have my husband in common with his family. And it's just, you find these things in common with different people, and it just gradually, you could expand all you liked, and you would constantly find things in common with different people. I mean, there might be chances are there are very few people who I wouldn't find something in common with somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Like, it's statistically unlikely because of the amount of things I'm interested in. You know, um, I mean, it might be a case of showing some people different things to find out what would actually be interested. Because I mean, people in, for example, third world countries probably wouldn't know what was on TV. But it's just the way the world works is fascinating.
It is. It's really cool. And yeah, I had a lot of trouble for a few years trying to accept the whole concept of oneness. But, it took me a few years to really like grasp it, And it's true. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wanted to
man.
make a quick note. I will say, kind of to touch on the disclaimer we gave earlier, that if you are wanting to use something to enhance your spirituality that is considered a drug, um, one, ideally, please be an adult. Two,
Right.
I would, if it's your first time, I highly recommend being around someone who has experienced it, um, and so they can also observe you and make sure you're reacting appropriately to it. So, say if you're having a bad anxiety attack on pot or a hallucinogen, someone is there to make sure to get you help if you need it. Um,
Right.
and if you question if it's the right thing for you, it's just if, don't do it then. That kind of a thing. Is, you know, if you have any inkling in yourself that like this doesn't feel quite right, like you're not quite resonating with it, then just don't do it. There's no requirement of any path that calls
Exactly.
you to drugs. So.
And research.
Yeah, you have to be 100% comfortable with what you're doing, and that is the same with anything, in my opinion. If you're
Right.
if you're not comfortable with what you're doing and you're questioning it, don't do it, or stop it from happening if you can. I mean, don't force yourself to do something because you think it might be a good thing to do, even if you're sat there thinking this doesn't feel right, I shouldn't be doing this. Also, a quick note about the having someone there who's experienced it before. Probably preferable to have them kind of sober in inverted commas, just like not doing the drug with you, just so they're kind of a bit more consciously aware of what's going on, so they can keep an eye on you a little bit better. Because if they're getting high as well, then they might be a bit useless.
Yep.
Trying to apply that, so I was like.
I mean, it seems like kind of a bit obvious, but yeah, yeah. We have some comments here from Black Orchid. First comment is, I guess the thing is not to abuse drugs, and if you seek help. Apparently they smoke cannabis, and there are some drugs that they would try, mushrooms for example. Apparently they've personally tried LSD and ecstasy, but are aware that if they abuse or take them regularly, it would turn into something that they do not want. And they've said that it's all about self-control.
Ecstasy is the only thing I'm actually curious about, but everything else I really think should stop for drugs.
The thing about self-control, though, again, that's what we were talking about before, about some people can...
I disagree about self-control.
It's how... Yeah, it's how much you have, and how much you can resist essentially the temptation of going back and keeping going.
Well, some people they can't, it's just not an option. Self-control is not an option. Their brain just works differently. They say, like, addiction and alcoholism is a disease. Those people don't operate or think the same way as normal people do. Like, normal people can say, hey, that's enough, I'm done. Whereas people that, have addiction issues or whatever, they just don't operate the same in their heads. It's just not. It's not an option. Like, I don't know. I would, like, when I was addicted to OxyContin, for example, that was something where I knew, yes, this is wrong. I need to stop. I cannot do this anymore. But I continued anyway because it wasn't even a fact of self-control. It was just, I don't know. We all operate differently, and some people, fortunately, can do that. They can just say no, and that's it, and they're done.
I wasn't meaning to say that, if you don't have self-control, it's just a case of some people have more than others. Perfectly fine. Addiction is actually considered by a lot of people to be a mental illness. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because the thing is, mental illness, there's a bit of I'm trying not to dig a hole here, but the thing is, with the term mental illness, it's like there's a lot of negative connotations with it, but it's not like
right.
And this is the thing that people tend to get confused about, because people think if someone says, oh, addiction is a mental illness, it seems that you're basically saying that this person is weaker than someone else, which is not really true. It's that they've been, they've done something, they've gotten addicted. Okay. If they get help, if they can, they will get help, and eventually a lot of people do.
Right, like certain things don't fire the same way upstairs for an addict as they do for someone who's not. Like, things just fire differently up there, like.
No, it's not the fault of the person who's gotten addicted or has the problem. It's no one's fault, really. I mean,
right.
If you're making a conscious decision to go back again and again and again and again and again, then yeah, you are to fault. But if it's not something, if it's something that you had under control, and then you don't have under control anymore, really, you can't be blamed for letting it get out of control if it's a case of it just kind of happened. Like, unless you're fully aware that it's destroying your family or something like that, then you can't really be massively blamed. People will still try and blame you, but it's
Yeah.
not really your fault. That's not to say you can go out and try drugs and get addicted if you know that it's gonna, if you know that it's gonna be a problem. And then everyone will just be like, "Oh, it's not your fault." No, it's just, it's. If you're born with an addictive personality, then you're born with an addictive personality. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I think those people need to be more careful when it comes to, trying to use certain things for their practice. Like,
Yep.
you really need to take a step back and make sure, like, okay, is this really that important?
Take as many
What are the
precautions as you
consequences?
can.
Yeah.
And think logically beforehand, because thinking logically afterwards will be a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is
Huh?
basically,
Oh, I was saying, what's the time we're at?
Oh.
we're at
Wow.
5 to 8 at the moment over here. So we've been going for nearly an hour now.
Do you have any other
Oh,
questions?
Black Orchid has said it also depends on the drugs, right?
Yeah.
To an extent, if you know that you have an addictive personality and you know that it can cause problems, then it's probably best to try and avoid as much as possible, which is what
There
I'm
are certain
doing.
drugs that are physically addicting, and then there's certain drugs that aren't. Like, I guess I don't know if that's what they mean, but
There are drugs that are worse than others.
yeah.
It's the individual and the actual substance itself. Because on the one hand, I've said this previously. Someone can be fine with, alcohol, alcohol, cannabis, whatever. When they get to something like heroin or cocaine, then
Totally
no,
different story, yeah.
totally different. Yeah, completely different. And when you're talking hard drugs like that, it's a lot worse. So yes, it does depend on the drug as well, but it also is down to the individual. And try and know your limits, because everyone has a certain tolerance or kind of limit on where they can get up to. Like, for example, I can go up to alcohol, but then I wouldn't go any further in case my limit is at alcohol. Because if my limit is there, then I go on to cannabis and get addicted. That's my own fault, because I'm aware that I may well have an addictive personality because both my parents did.
Right.
So this kind of means that essentially I am fully aware that my limit might well be alcohol, and therefore I'm stopping there and not going any further. So try and know where your limit is. If you're not sure where your limit is, try and stay below it. Don't push too far if you think it's possible that you might go over the edge, essentially, because once you go over it, it's very difficult to get back up.
Yep.
I'm using a lot of metaphors here, but that's just the way I learn things.
That's really all I had on the subject.
So now path to a kind of talk on the problems of addiction. and yeah.
Yes, it's been more about addiction, huh?
Yeah.
Not the
Yeah.
craft.
Well, I mean,
Touched on spirituality too, so covers.
yeah, I mean, we have touched on it, and we've gone through a little bit of it, but I think, to be honest, I had more to say on addiction anyway, because I just don't, I haven't used any. I mean, the most I've used in terms of with the path is just incense, which isn't really taking drugs, inhaling.
Yeah, I
But
think the only drugs, not condoning this at all either, but out of all the drugs I have done, the only ones that I could see using for spiritual purposes would be like, LSD, mushrooms, marijuana, and that's pretty much it. those types, that category, the hallucinogenic category. Everything else, there's no spiritual purpose to. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah,
Well, I mean, there are
doing
things that
cocaine
will.
or smoking crack, there's really no spiritual purpose to that. So,
Yeah,
no.
that's not what
No.
I mean. There are things that will calm you down for like meditation and stuff.
Right.
Um,
Well, then, of
things
course,
that
the natural herbal stuff, too, but
yeah, I mean, but I
I
mean,
don't consider that drugs.
there are things that are, that aren't 100% legal that will also, just kind of slow you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Which might help with meditation because you get to kind of clear your mind, just kind of sit peacefully. You're not kind of fidgeting or anything like that. It's easier to focus, but at the same time, it's like if you've got to be willing to understand the risks and the consequences, because if you're
Yeah.
doing something illegal and you're doing something addictive and you're doing something, it can cause a lot of problems. I mean, worst case scenario, you get addicted, you get arrested, you know, you have people who, care about you who are going through problems because of that, because they care about you and your, essentially in their eyes, because I've been there, I know that essentially it's like someone who's addicted is destroying themselves. And you can't stop them, they can't even stop themselves, and it gets to a problem. So you've got to understand the
Right.
risks, the consequences, and you've got to make sure that you're willing to take, like, the problems with that. I mean, there might be some benefits short term, but there are a lot of long term consequences as well. So yeah,
Yep.
and there are things, it's not just talking about mental here. It's, drugs can affect physical aspects, biological levels. So be wary of that as well. So research before you do anything. If you do anything, hopefully you won't do anything, too dangerous. As we said, we're not advocating anything here. We're just kind of discussing our own experiences. I personally advise against it. I'm not sure you guys would
I
add
would
anything to it, but
generally advise against it, but if you do decide that doing some kind of substance is going to help you in your practice, research. Make sure you do a shitload of research and make sure you, um, you know, are being, monitored by a good friend or somebody that's, has your best interest in mind.
Yep.
just be careful. I think
Very
is what we're
careful,
trying to
yes.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think unless anyone else got anything to say, that's about it.
Yep.
Um.
I'll put my little note in right now. Is that okay?
Yep. Go
Yeah.
for it.
So I'm not going to reiterate what's going on with me personally, but I will be on a hiatus for about a month. I do have 2 pre-recorded videos that are already scheduled, so this Sunday and next Sunday you guys will see me, but probably the rest of the Sundays, and most likely the live event for August, I will not be participating because of family stuff. So, yeah, that's just a heads up for anybody who may notice that I am MIA. That's about it.
Okay. So unless you've got anything to add, Michelle?
Nope,
No.
I'm good.
No. Okay. Next topic will be in 4 weeks' time, and that is premonitions, dreams, and other psychic abilities as it stands at the moment. If you have any ideas for more Google Hangouts live chat topics, please do leave a comment below, because when this goes out, it will be comments, it won't be the live chat box. And yeah, let us know what you think. This actually stemmed from our topic on morals and ethics, so we can always change something into a topic if you have a question. And yeah, I think that's all we have to say. So, on behalf of all of us here, thank you for watching, and blessed be.